reportedly ignored her messages for weeks back then. That's the part nobody expected to leak. Not the royal title, not the rumors about reconnecting, not even the whispers that he's suddenly trying to get close to her again. No, the detail people keep repeating inside royal gossip circles this week is that years ago, when Leonor, Princess of Asturias, was still a teenager trying to live something close to a normal life, this guy allegedly treated her like she was just another awkward royal kid. And now that she's becoming one of the most watched young women in Europe, suddenly he wants back in. I'm sorry, but that dynamic is painfully human. And honestly, I think that's why this story is exploding online right now. Not because people care about another possible royal romance. It's because almost everybody has experienced some version of this emotionally. The person who overlooked you before, suddenly noticing your value later. And if we're being real, those situations never feel simple. Especially when power enters the picture. Now, before people jump to conclusions, let me say this clearly, nobody officially confirmed some grand royal love story here. A lot of this conversation is coming from insider whispers, social media speculation, and the kind of elite gossip that spreads fast once a single photo or interaction surfaces. But what caught my attention wasn't the romance angle. It was what this situation reveals about how people see Leonor now compared to a few years ago. Because I genuinely think the world's perception of her has changed dramatically. And if you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because these stories are never just about royalty. They're about power, image, relationships, and how public attention changes human behavior. Now here's what fascinates me. Back when Leonor was younger, people viewed her almost like a protected symbol. Reserved, quiet, still developing, a future queen in theory, not yet in reality. But 2026 Leonor feels completely different. Military training, public confidence, international visibility, controlled composure. She's no longer the future someday. She looks like the future now. And whether people admit it or not, status changes attraction. That's just reality. I know some viewers hate hearing that because it sounds cynical, but human beings are heavily influenced by perception, momentum, and social value. The same person ignored at one stage of life can suddenly become magnetic later once the world starts paying attention. We see it everywhere: Hollywood, politics, sports, even YouTube culture. Look at creators like Mr. Beast. Years ago, many people underestimated him. Now everybody wants access to him because success changes how society evaluates people. Royal life works the same way, just with crowns instead of algorithms. And this is where I think the Leonor story gets emotionally complicated. Because imagine trying to figure out whether somebody likes you, or likes proximity to what you represent. That would mess with anybody psychologically. Especially someone raised inside royal systems where trust is already fragile. And honestly, I think modern royals probably deal with this more than we realize. Every friendship becomes strategic. Every romance becomes public speculation. Every interaction gets analyzed for hidden motives. That sounds exhausting. Now let's talk about the alleged rejection itself, because I don't think it was necessarily dramatic in the way tabloids want people to imagine. From what's circulating, it sounds more like a quiet teenage disconnect. Different worlds, different priorities, maybe even insecurity on both sides. And that's important, because people online keep rewriting these stories into revenge fantasies. He rejected her. Now he regrets it. But real life is usually more awkward than cinematic. Teenagers make dumb decisions. People misread each other. Timing matters. Still, I can't ignore the symbolism here. Because the public loves transformation narratives. They love seeing someone underestimated become powerful later. And I think part of Leonor's growing appeal comes from that exact energy. She no longer feels like someone simply inheriting a role. She feels like someone actively earning authority. Huge difference. That's why younger audiences are paying attention to her in ways older royal coverage never achieved. She feels contemporary, not because she overshares online or tries to become an influencer queen, actually, the opposite. She feels contemporary because she understands image discipline in an era obsessed with visibility. That's rare, and honestly, I think some European royal circles underestimated her badly at first. A lot of people assumed she'd become another carefully managed ceremonial figure. Instead, she's becoming something sharper, a modern institutional personality built for the social media age. While Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, still project traditional warmth and family branding in Britain, Leonor's image in Spain feels more focused on resilience, discipline, and preparation. It's almost like comparing an old luxury brand to a startup built for a completely different market. And here's my hot take. I think this rumored reconnection story is spreading now because it reinforces a very specific narrative. Leonor is no longer the overlooked royal teenager. She's becoming a serious global figure. That's the subtext, not romance. Power. That's why audiences are reacting emotionally. Because underneath the royal details, people recognize a universal human truth: success changes how the world treats you. Sometimes unfairly. And honestly, that realization can become dangerous. Because once someone realizes attention increases with status, they start questioning every relationship around them. Is this genuine? Or is this proximity attraction? That question probably follows public figures constantly. And I'll be honest, if I were in Leonor's position, I'd struggle trusting people too. Not because everybody has bad intentions, but because influence naturally attracts curiosity, admiration, ambition, and projection. Especially now, the closer Leonor gets to the throne, the more symbolic she becomes. She's no longer just a young woman privately figuring out life. She's becoming Spain's future identity in the eyes of many supporters. That changes how people approach her. And maybe that's why I find these stories more sad than glamorous. Because imagine losing the ability to know whether affection is spontaneous. Imagine wondering if someone likes the person, or the mythology around the person. That's emotionally heavy. And here's another angle nobody's discussing enough. What if this guy genuinely changed? Seriously, the internet always assumes people reconnect only because of fame or status. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes people grow up. Sometimes teenagers overlook qualities they later understand differently as adults. Life is messy like that. So I don't think the interesting question is, does he deserve another chance? I think the real question is, can someone like Leonor ever fully separate genuine emotion from public symbolism? That's the deeper issue, and honestly, I don't know the answer. Because monarchy itself complicates intimacy. Every relationship potentially affects diplomacy, headlines, public approval, and institutional image. That's an enormous psychological burden for somebody still so young. Which is why I think the palace is extremely careful about any romantic narrative surrounding her right now. Notice how controlled everything around Leonor feels lately. Minimal chaos, minimal leaks, minimal impulsive behavior. That's intentional. Spain's monarchy learned from previous controversies that perception can either stabilize the institution or damage it for years. So now they're crafting Leonor almost like a long-term project in discipline and credibility. And weirdly enough, stories like this can actually help that image. Why? Because it humanizes her, not through scandal. Through relatability, people connect with emotional memory. Rejection, growth, reconnection, those themes are timeless. And in a strange way, they make Leonor feel less like an unreachable royal figure and more like someone navigating the same emotional confusion everybody else experiences, just under global scrutiny. That's powerful storytelling whether the palace intended it or not. Now here's where my opinion becomes a little complicated. Part of me hopes none of this becomes serious. Not because romance is bad, but because the closer Leonor gets to becoming queen, the harder normal emotional experiences become. Every relationship risks becoming national conversation. That pressure destroys privacy. And yet another part of me thinks maybe stories like this are important because they remind people that beneath all the military uniforms, ceremonial appearances, and carefully controlled headlines, there's still a young woman trying to figure out who genuinely sees her. Not the title, not the crown, not the future queen. Her. And honestly, that may be one of the hardest challenges modern royalty faces now. Not ruling a country, figuring out who around them is real,